complex drugs we are talking about that we use on a daily basis actually have their side effects too. And it is not just about getting high. It is not just about getting slow. It is about how we use these drugs. Sometimes you don't just have to, swallow, caplets and tablets at all times. There are limitations, and of course, once you have reached the limit, once you have used it excessively, then it becomes a problem for the body system, and of course, one has to be careful how you swallow drugs. And of course, when our people have issues as regards, drugs being used, then they don't exactly know what to do. There are so many things you can actually do. You just have to see a doctor immediately if you feel any problem, in your body system, when you have actually known that you have used a drug, and of course you are having issues as regards your body system. Of course, sometimes you just don't have to be physically dependent on any substance. You don't have to regularly take or use any substance. You don't have to have difficulty with work or social relationship because you are taking a particular drug. There are effects to this drug we use, and of course we have to be careful what we do, because if we talk about drug abuse and its effects, there are so many things we'll be discussing today, and then bit by bit we'll be bringing you how you can actually overcome drug abuse, how you can actually advise other people to stop excessive use of a certain drug, and of course different ways with which you can actually put a stop to the use of excessive drugs. Let's talk about drug abuse and its effects. Sometimes it causes seizures, strokes, mental confusion, and brain damage, lung disease, problems with memory, attention, and decision making, which makes daily living more difficult, global effects of drugs on the body, such as breast development in men, and increases in body temperature, which can lead to other health problems. Let's break this down. Most of the times, people actually have difficulty in concentrating, and they don't even know where this comes from. And if you are, the type that actually knows exactly how your body system works, you will begin to understand the fact that there are changes. And once you notice those changes, visit your physician, visit the hospital, observe a proper checkup, and of course with that, sometimes there might be need for you to be counseled out of that particular situation. And if you feel you can actually do that on your own, then you have to put a drastic stop to the use of drug. And then if you are noticing your a certain part of your limbs begin to malfunction, mental confusion sometimes, when you just can't think straight, and within yourself that you actually abuse drugs, and then it is high time you stopped using excessive drugs, because even the most common of all drugs, paracetamol, can be abused.
Over sea, over land, over mountains in the world, I'll be brave and I'll be strong. I'm an African boy.
Yes, it is not only in Africa where drugs are being abused. It is, a global thing. And of course, there are different drugs, a set of drugs for different continents. And of course, daily we see people, improvising. If a certain drug is not available in the market, you see them, thinking of something else. There are so many things people have tried, ranging from cough syrups to, sleeping tablets to, they just tend to mix things together. Right here in this part of the world, we call them science students. And of course, if you have actually turned yourself to a science student, all in the name of getting high, it is high time you stopped that, because when the health hazard begins to manifest, then you understand the fact that life itself, when it gives you an opportunity, you just have to use it, make the best use of it before within a blink of an eye it vanishes.
children grow.
Drug use refers to any scope of use of illegal drugs, heroin use, cocaine use, tobacco use. Drug misuse is used to distinguish improper or unhealthy use from use of a medication as prescribed or alcohol in moderation. When we say drug abuse, I said it earlier, we can say excessive use of a certain drug, but then there are other things too where if you don't do it in moderation, then it becomes an abuse. And of course, we have talked about heroin, cocaine, tobacco itself, which we believe is the mildest of all. But then there are hazards too when you begin to have lung issues because you want to enjoy yourself. Sometimes you begin to wonder why people smoke even when the sun is so hard on them, and it is a major problem because even where tobacco was brought from, even where it originated from, there are times where people don't actually smoke that much. But then here we don't know the moderation, we don't know exactly when to smoke, and of course we don't even know where to stop. And it becomes a problem because sometimes adults begin to become bad influences to young children who see them as role models, and then you begin to ask yourself some questions like, why exactly are youths of nowadays doing this? But then when you check, you begin to understand the fact that they actually have role models. Probably there was a person who was, like a brother or like an uncle to such, a young child in your community who actually influenced such child into believing such habit is actually good for him. And then you have to watch the kind of people, the peer group, of course, and of course, people who your children see as role models, because immediately you take your eyes off such things, then that means there is fire on the mountain, and just when you think you are about to be enjoying the fruit of your labor, then there are certain things that might actually crop up, and the science of drugs use and addiction, there are basics to it. We'll be digesting that. There are ways we'll talk about it today that will make you understand the fact that we need to address certain issues as soon as possible.
Seven nights, that's what I've got. I'm an African boy. Over sea, over land, over mountains and over wild. I'll be brave and I'll be strong. I'm an African boy.
Substance abuse can simply be defined as a pattern of harmful use of any substance for mood-altering purposes. Yes, I spoke about this earlier. Substances can include alcohol and other drug use, illegal or not, as well as some substances that are not drugs at all. Then, sometimes people say, I talked about getting high and getting low. They just want to be in a certain realm. And that's exactly why they use substances. And then sometimes they mix it with soft drinks, they mix them with water, and then they begin to drink. And boom, in a blink of an eye, the effect begins to manifest. Sometimes there was a situation I witnessed in a football house where we were watching football. After a team had scored, it was, I think, about 5 minutes later, then the guy began to celebrate. He was very, very low in morale. And of course, I was wondering what actually happened. But then, he was seeing the whole situation in a different direction. And then that was exactly what he wanted before he actually took those drugs. And then you begin to wonder, why exactly will a person put himself in a difficult situation all in the name of getting high or getting low?
Nice. 7 gods, 7 jumps, 7 rivers, 7 carries, 7 nuts, 7 lives, that's what I've got. I want to walk the dance over sea, over land, over mountains and the wild.
Let's talk about the types of drug abuse. Let's talk about substance abuse. There is alcohol abuse, prescription drug addiction, drug abuse itself, illegal drugs, marijuana, teen cough medication abuse, and of course addiction recovery. I said it earlier. We spoke about cough syrups being used as a way of getting high. And of course, there are other illicit drugs which are, are actually illegal in the country. And definitely there are, probably there's a prescription by the doctor, and the doctor says you just have to use this probably for 1 week, and then because you enjoyed how you felt during the period with which you used it, then you begin to you turn it to a routine. You begin to order for it time and time again. But then you have to understand the fact that if a medical practitioner tells you this drug is just meant for a week, there must be a reason why he decided to put a stop to it after 1 week. And then because you felt relieved after that period, you turned it into a regular thing, just like your meal, then it becomes a problem. Because sometimes even if a drug works for your body system, there are hazardous part of it which you don't know, and that's exactly why a physician is needed before you take any form of drug. Before you even think of taking it, you just have to consult them before you do that, because there are different ways people abuse drugs, and of course there are different classes of people that abuse drugs. When we talk about adults, probably they have an inherent health issue, and then there's a certain drug that have been prescribed for them since they last visited the hospital. The moment you finish using your prescription, most of the times they fail to return to the hospital for checkup, and then they believe since the drug was prescribed to them in the first place, then they don't have to go to the hospital again. They just have to continue with that medication. But mind you, sometimes a particular drug is a foundation laid for another drug to be prescribed to you, and if you fail to understand that and you begin to use that same drug repeatedly, then it might harm your body system. And I do tell people the most dangerous place for you to not to take care of is whatever is within you. Yes, when you eat, you just have to watch what you eat, because you don't know what exactly is happening in there unless you visit your physician. And then if there's a wound on your leg, you already know how big or how small it is. But then whatever you swallow, whatever you eat, or the drug you take has an effect with which you don't even know how it works unless it reflects in your body system. But then if it doesn't, some of them are hazardous and harmful to your health, and if you fail to recognize that, you might never know until it becomes a major problem within you.
I'm yourself, no be by force, not by sense. Now you go make in Nigeria better, a nation with vision.
There are three categories, when we talk about general drug abuse. We have the narcotics, we have the stimulants, and of course we have the sedatives. These are the three major aspects of drugs which is currently being abused around the world. We have a mission, Red Bono, to build this nation. Despite increasing rates of illicit and prescription drugs misuse among adults older than 65 years, of course, alcohol remains the most commonly used substance amongst older adults right here in Nigeria. It needs no introduction. Someone asked me a question not long ago, that is caffeine a drug? Then here is a response for you in case you want to know that. Caffeine is defined as a drug because it stimulates the central nervous system, causing increased alertness. Caffeine gives most people a temporary energy boost and elevates mood. Caffeine is in tea, coffee, chocolate, many soft drinks, and pain relievers, and other over-the-counter medications. So for me, yes, caffeine is a drug because most of the drugs you buy over the counter contain caffeine. Most of the energy drinks you drink has caffeine. Your tea has caffeine. Coffee has caffeine. A lot of things we put in our mouth actually contains caffeine. And of course, when you look at the effect of caffeine on people, some actually say they find it difficult to sleep at night because the effect of caffeine on them is actually when you take too much of certain thing, it becomes a problem. So a person wants to take energy drink, takes 2, 3 or 4, then that's excess of it. You don't actually need that much for you to be energized. There are certain energy drinks you can actually go for that does not contain this kind of drug. Alright, that particular part which you have been waiting for is marijuana, which I know you have been waiting for, which is the most common when we talk about drugs being abused. As a result, weed can be classified as a depressant, stimulant, or hallucinogen according to the University of Maryland. However, it is never classified as an opiate. When you look at the situation of things, people want to they want to feel high, and of course they want to feel stimulated. Then when they say they are down, they want a morale booster, they want something that will make them reason, as they always say. But then after you get high, then you definitely will get low, back to your normal senses, and then you return to the usual way of doing things. But then in some parts of the world, weed is actually marijuana, to be precise, is actually a thing you cannot go about on the streets because it has been banned. But then it is legal in certain parts of the world. Right there in Nigeria, marijuana is a drug that must not be sent with you. So either you sell or either you actually take them, then you are doing things that is actually against the law of the land.
But never, 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 never the spirit.
That's so in the music.
Wherever the soul is.
In addition to sugar, chocolate also has 2 other neuroactive drugs, caffeine and theobromine. Chocolate not only stimulates the opiate receptors in our brains, it also causes a release of neurochemicals in the brain's pleasure centers. So if you are thinking chocolate is just food, or chocolate is just an appetizer, believe you me, there's a certain part of chocolate that actually contains drugs. And of course it has its positive and negative effects. We'll still get to that part, but then you just have to understand the fact that excess intake of chocolate too can also mean you are overdosing on a certain drug.
The soul in the music.
Behind it you'll find the African.
Behind it, you find the African.
You might begin to wonder why people find solace, in drugs, especially adults over 65 years of age. Depression is the most common mental health problem in older people. People aged 65 and older have highest suicide rate of any age group. 2/3 of seniors with mental health problems do not get the treatment they need, especially in this part of the world. So they resort to alcohol. And then, even if you resort to alcohol to actually make you feel good, it is still going to mess you up whether you like it or not, because if you overdose on it, it becomes a major problem for your body system.
Africa,
right, hypertension is a major contributor to atherosclerosis. Is the most common chronic disease of older adults. Isolated systolic hypertension is particularly common among older adults and is associated with mortality even at advanced ages. And that's, one of the health challenges that actually make people overdose on drugs. There is a certain drug prescribed for such people, and if you don't know when to stop, and of course if you don't know when to use such kind of drug, then when you overdose, it still has an effect that it leaves on your body system that you might never recover from. Let's take a closer look at drug abuse among teens in Nigeria. Drug abuse may be defined as the arbitrary overdependence or misuse of one particular drug with or without a prior medical diagnosis from qualified health practitioners, which I said earlier. Drug abuse is the harmful use of mind-altering drugs. It's added that the term usually refers to problem with illegal drugs, which also include harmful use of legal prescription drugs, such as in self-medication. Majority of the Nigerian adolescents ignorantly depend on one form of drug or the other for their various daily activities, social, educational, political, moral, etc. Such drugs include tobacco, Indian hemp, cocaine, morphine, heroin, alcohol, ephedrine, madras, caffeine, glue, barbiturates, and amphetamines. I was beginning to mention some drugs where people actually misuse. I didn't mention glues. People actually, they inhale glues, and of course, this will shock you, but then it happens. They actually go as far as inhaling pit toilets to get high. You don't know that, but now you know. They go as far as doing that. And of course, there are so many drugs which it is nowadays we have combination of drugs, because it has gotten to a stage where one particular drug no longer get them high or low. So what they do is they mix varieties of drugs to actually get high. When they actually lace their weeds with different drugs nowadays. We have what we call retinol and the likes, and they derive joy from it. But then these are drugs that actually damage the body system, and if they fail to desist from that, it becomes a major problem for the body system.
And they go, ìlú òyìnbó, ṣé ìyàwó wey never taste it once on the house. No, which one was sweet in passing.
Let's talk about the prevalence of drug abuse in Nigeria. From the record of drugs abuse in Nigeria, the Northwest has a statistics of 37.47% of the drugs victims in the country, while Southwest has been rated second with 17.32%. The Southeast is being rated third with 13.5%. North Central has 11.7%. While the Northeast zone has 8.54% of the drugs users in the country, according to Ackerman in 2008. In Nigeria, the estimated lifetime consumption of cannabis among the population is 10.8%, followed by psychotropic substances like benzodiazepines and amphetamines type stimulants, 10.6% heroin, 1.6% cocaine, and of course 1.4% other drugs. In both urban and rural areas, drug abuse appears to be common among males with 94.2% than females 5.8%. And the age of the first use is 10 to 29 years. The use of volatile organic solvents is 0.5% and is widely spread among the street children in schools. and of course youth and women. Multiple drugs use happen nationwide with 7.88% to varying degrees. There are so many research that have been conducted for this purpose basically, and it says male children actually they start the use of drug at the age of 10, and of course that period to 29, let's say 70% of them are still under the wings of their parents, but then they do it right under their noses, and then they fail to notice that.
If them tell you say under the sweet go, it's a lie. Many of my people yonder now suffer here. Oyinbo sefunko, illiterate boku. Some cannot read, some cannot write.
Let's talk about causes of young people vulnerability to drug abuse in the country. Students have revealed that most of the drugs addicts started smoking from their youth. As they grow older, they seek new thrills and gradually go into hard drugs abuse. In 2010, there was a research conducted amongst about 200 students where they told a different story on how they actually started the use of drug. A nationwide survey of high school students reported that 65% used drugs to have good time with their friends, 54% wanted to experiment to see what it is like, while 20% to 40% used it to alter their moods, to feel good, relax, to relieve tension, and of course to overcome boredom and problems. So let's talk about these. No single factor could be defined as solely responsible for the abuse of drugs, but the following are some of the causes of young people vulnerable to drug abuse in Nigeria. One, curiosity and desire to find out the effectiveness of a particular drug. So most of the times they just want to know how a particular drug actually feels, and then you see them making use of it, and then before they know it, trying it first time, second time, and the third time, then it becomes a norm for them. That's where addiction actually comes from. Peer group influence, the kind of people they actually roll with will determine if they actually do drugs. And of course, when their parents are not around, and then they just have to be around their friends, if whether they like it or not, at a point they will begin to consider the use of drugs.
This one a multi-generational disaster. Except we wake up and we do.
Well, the environment actually causes, youth of the nation to actually use drugs. Many young people live in communities which suffer from multiple deprivations, with high unemployment, low quality housing, and where the surroundings infrastructure of local services is splintered and poorly resourced. In such communities, drug supply and use often thrive as an alternative economy, often poorly, often controlled by powerful criminal groups. So in an area which is underdeveloped, where there's low employment rate, and of course, youth in that area will resort to other things, which sales of drugs and other, harmful materials is included. And then, the moment there is a seller, definitely there will be a buyer. And then basically you just have to understand the fact that youths don't actually they don't have the mindset of actually doing drugs in the first place, but then all these factors put together, you begin to understand how majority of them started the use of drugs. And then there is a certain part of this that actually says promotion and availability. There is a considerable pressure to use legal substances. Alcohol and pain relieving drugs are regularly advertised on television. So there are some legal drugs that are advertised on television, and when they actually use them and they feel certain way, the urge to actually repeat it becomes a norm, and then repeating certain drug until it becomes an addiction, and then it becomes a thing that goes out of hand, because no one is actually there. There's no regulatory body that actually does that job to make sure there is proper orientation amongst youth and, of course, young adults on how to use certain drugs. And then, people actually use it for enjoyment, saying, I want to enjoy myself. That's where alcohol actually comes from. People see the use of alcohol as, a source of enjoyment. They call it faji. And then, in the course of having the so-called faji in quotes, then it becomes a regular thing, becomes a major problem. And then once one becomes, an addict, it's a major problem to actually, pull out. And then youth somehow then they will not be able to control the urge to actually have alcohol, and then faji becomes a major problem for them in the long run. Let's also talk about the socio-economic status of the parents. Socio-economic status of the parents entails direct costs, which are very important to families. Particularly, this is related to every aspect of the family's life, and caring to children. The implication of family relationship on students have remained an alarming factor to the total life of the children. What am I saying in essence is that sometimes whether you like it or not, you don't have to be poor to do certain things, and you don't have to be rich to do certain things. Taking proper care of your children is actually important. Knowing what they do, knowing the kind of people they actually roll with, that's one of the ways you can curb the use of drugs in the society. Because while you are away, while you are trying to find daily bread too, you just have to understand the fact that there's a major reason why you are doing such job, to make sure you feed the family. And then you don't want to regret actually going out to feed the family while the family is actually on fire. So you just have to be mindful of certain things, be consistent with knowing exactly what your children do in your absence, what kind of people they roll with, what kind of teachers they have, because sometimes children actually they see people as their friends. Yes, most especially people they see on a regular basis. So if it's a teacher that they actually see on a regular basis, then it becomes their friend. Whatever he does in their presence becomes a norm. And of course, if it is your own uncles or brothers that actually hangs around them, and you fail to watch closely what they actually do together, then becomes a problem, because they see those people as you, because your brother or your sister has direct access to your children, and whatever he or she does in their presence becomes a routine for them too. Let's not forget about the pathological family background. Pathological family background, broken homes, illegitimate relationships, alcoholic parents, and parents' involvement in antisocial and illegal activities. As I said earlier, whatever you do in front of your children becomes a norm. And of course, a broken home actually causes a lot of things, because if it takes parents, both of them, extra duties to take care of children, how much more of a broken home where one person has to do the job of two people? And of course, there are certain broken homes where the parents are not even involved, they are no longer in the picture, and of course it is the job of the grandmother or the grandfather to take care of little kids. How exactly do you want such a person to actually take closer look at what they do? Then it becomes a major problem, and then the society does not need that. We just have to make sure we maintain, some sanity in the society. And then to curb the use of drugs, we need to watch closely what our children actually does. And of course, there are, consequences to the use of drugs, be it an adult, be it a young man or a young lady. If you use drugs excessively, there is an outcome, there are consequences, and of course, you just might not be able to bear it when the time comes, because when the system begins to fail, then you just might not know exactly what the causes are. But then so many people have actually died with the excessive use of alcohol and of course other illicit drugs. There is this use of what we call alcohol basically, but then we call them ogogoro in Yoruba. There is this certain set of people that where you see them where they actually drink it, something is actually wrong within their system. They have problems, but then they see it as their way of life. They see it as a norm. Nobody complains about it, because even the government is not doing enough to make sure all these centers are sanitized. There has to be sanity on our streets. Before you walk, let's say a mile, there are 2, 3, or 4 of such centers around our community, and people are dying on a regular basis. You hear about the death of certain person who has actually overdosed on drug, who has actually overused alcohol, who has actually overused caffeine or overused tobacco. These are things that should be curbed, and then the government has to come into the picture and see how they can actually put a drastic stop to all these things. These are the reasons why the life expectancy of a man or a woman in the society has actually reduced drastically. I think a man is around 55, where a woman is, I think, 65 or thereabout. It shouldn't be that way, but what we put in our mouth, it's a major problem. I didn't mention earlier that people actually overdose on seasoning. Yes, it is funny, but then it is the truth. When you mix this glutamate seasoning with alcohol and then with soft drink, then it's just what it is. But then that is the kind of environment we have found ourselves. Let's talk about the 6 steps to which you can actually fight drug abuse in the society. The number 1 step is to know your teens' activities. Pay attention to your teens' whereabouts. I said it earlier, you have to be cautious of where they go, who they roll with, and what they do at every point in time. Because if you fail to do that, the moment they start doing it, even if you want to put a stop to it, then it becomes a real battle, a real problem. Establish rules and consequences. You have to let them know the consequences of taking drugs. You have to let them know there are rules to living their lives to the fullest. If you really want to enjoy your life, you just have to follow certain rules. And of course, abstaining from alcohol and other illicit drugs is actually one of them. Yeah, I said it earlier, you have to know your teens' friends. You have to know who they roll with. If you fail to do that, then it's a major problem for you as a parent.
Listen to translation.
You have to also keep track of prescription of drugs. If you are the type that actually does not visit the hospital, you prefer self-medication, you are toying with fire. And of course, you just have to make sure you don't visit quack hospitals where they give you prescriptions that does not actually match what is exactly wrong with you. And of course, you need to be sure that once your prescription ends, you put an end to that drug, unless your physician actually tells you to go ahead with it, because it is tantamount to overdose of drug if you fail to understand that. And of course, as a parent, you have to set a good example for your children, because what you do in their presence is actually what they see as a norm. So if you are the type that also takes alcohol, or you are the type that also overdose on drugs, you actually take drugs in their presence, there is no way you can tell them it is illegal to take drugs or it is hazardous to their health, because they are going to see you as disenfranchising them, not allowing them to actually do what they like doing, because it is a norm to them. Well, drug abuse is a topic that is actually wide. We might not be able to complete that today because we are out of time, but then when we see next time, we will still be able to discuss more on drug abuse. I hope you have actually enjoyed this very bit. Of course, next week is another edition of Skywave Digest on Salt Radio Ibadan. You can watch live on YouTube. It is Skywave Pro, Skywave PRO on YouTube. Log on to your YouTube, search for Skywave Pro, check their videos, of course their streams. You'll see this very bit in there. You can enjoy it from the beginning in case you are just joining us. And of course, you can also watch us live on Salt Radio Ibadan. Log on to your Facebook, search for Salt Radio Ibadan, watch us live. You can do that on Facebook, the Skywave Production on Facebook. You can check us live there too. And of course, on behalf of my producer this afternoon, Kenny Adejida, and of course, my executive producer, Omawumi Oloyede, and of course, the other technical committees who actually made this possible this wonderful afternoon, Zainab Adepoju, Aisha Tainde, and of course, Rachel Oluwafemi Oladipupo. I say thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to us. Until next week, my name is Balogun Samson Anoluapo, your official captain on radio. I say, keep being good, keep being safe. Bye for now.